did the craziest thing of my life, literally ripped out my IV and left the hospital. Will not recommend anybody to do that. I was not in my right frame of mind. I was stressed, like I mentioned, and of course when you are stressed and when your body is not being well taken care of, you will do crazy things. Hey beautiful people, welcome in. Today we are going to be talking about something very personal to me, and that is how I quit my first job after being burned out for an extended period of time. We're going to do a deep dive into that story and my experience, and hopefully through that you understand a little bit more about your own situation. Maybe you can take something away from this to help you with your next steps. So let's jump right onto the situation that I was in. So I'm fresh out of college. I am moving to a new state specifically for this job. I don't have any family here. I don't have any friends here. I have no connections in this new location. So I am picking up and I am moving. Now, this isn't my first time traveling. I've done that. I've stayed in places for extended periods of time. I've traveled in other countries for extended periods of time also. So it's not unfamiliar for me to be in a new location, be in a new environment. At this point, I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited. I get to be away from home and actually start to build out my adult life. So I'm excited about this opportunity. I instantly start working. I probably start working maybe 2 weeks after I get to my new apartment in this new city, in this new state. And it's all fun in the beginning. Of course, you're going through orientation, you're meeting new people, you're learning a lot about the job. I would say the burnout symptoms probably started to creep in maybe around that first or second month. You can see the symptoms, but I wasn't quite burned out, but you could just see that the actions that were building up in that time period were going to lead me to burnout. So in this case, I am working extremely long hours. I have some calls maybe starting at 6 a.m. So in that case, I need to wake up a little bit earlier. I am taking calls all day long. So I am just straight meetings back to back, and we're talking about 5 days a week. And I'm essentially working from, let's say, 6 a.m. all the way to maybe 11 p.m. at night. So I would wake up early in the morning at my apartment, take some phone calls, take some notes, do whatever work that needs to be done. Then I would go into the office. I had to be in the office around 8 a.m. So I'm in the office around this time period. I am at my desk. I'm hovered at my desk, essentially. And like I mentioned, working all day. So there's very minimal time for me to take a break, very minimal time for me to maybe just get up and walk, go to the restroom. There was just so much that needed to be done and so much that was expected of me that it was very difficult to get anything else done throughout that day. And then I would probably leave the office around 6 p.m., go home, and instantly log on again. And I'm probably working till 11 p.m. at night, like I mentioned. So this was, like I mentioned, 5 days out of the week. So this is very exhausting, grinding out at a computer, at a desk, not really getting the opportunity to walk away or to eat something of substance. And then this carried over into the weekends, where I am starting to open up my laptop on the weekends. And I'm also working not nearly as long, but still putting in a significant amount of hours over the weekend just to maintain the priorities that needed to be completed at work. And so I'm no stranger to being able to handle a lot of work, being able to multitask. That is not new to me. However, in this particular case, I did feel as though the expectations, not high, unrealistic. I do think that the expectations were unrealistic from my management team and what they wanted me to accomplish in the time period that was given to me. So of course, this is a recipe for disaster, and I'm getting very little sleep. I'm not eating well. I'm working long hours. I'm stressed from the work demands. And then it all started to culminate into me getting anxiety to where I was actually on site at a client site and I had an anxiety attack. And I've never had one of those before. So at this point, I'm just like, something's wrong with my heart. I'm having a heart attack. Something's wrong. Like something's seriously wrong. Like somebody get me to the ER because I'm having a heart attack. And then I get to the ER, no heart attack. I am just having a full-blown active anxiety attack. So I'm in the hospital. And then of course my manager, being my ride, is texting, calling, making sure I'm okay, trying to see, okay, when can I pick you up? Because essentially there's work to be done. There's more things to do. You don't have time to be sick. So of course, younger me, I'm like, oh, I gotta go. I gotta get out of here. Did the craziest thing of my life, literally ripped out my IV and left the hospital. Will not recommend anybody to do that. I was not in my right frame of mind. I was stressed, like I mentioned. And of course, when you are stressed and when your body is not being well taken care of, you will do crazy things. And that was a crazy experience. So yes, I was completely drained, very much burned out, and I had no idea what to do. So I'm at this crossroads of like, okay, something has to give. I have to figure this out. And me being, I'm young, I can recover from this. I put in my notice in right away. I'm like, I don't have a backup plan. I'm out of here. I got to take care of myself. I have no idea what's going on. I'm low-key freaking out. I just took out my IV. So of course I'm freaking out here. But I submit my 2 weeks notice. And that very next day, one of the higher ups reached out to me and they said, Kyla, let's have a sit down. Let's talk. I don't want you to leave the company. So I said, okay. Let me take this opportunity to speak to you. So now we're going through what the situation is, and we start to level set with expectations. He didn't want me to leave. I wanted to leave. However, I needed to have realistic expectations for my workload, and I needed to be able to take care of myself because at this point, it is about almost a year of me grinding out like this. We're talking about a span of literally a year before me getting that anxiety attack and ending up in the hospital. That is way too long. And, career stress is a very serious thing that people need to take more seriously, especially with the self-harm rates going up. So he sits down with me, we level set, and we come up with a plan together. So this is one way in which I was like, okay, maybe I can stay. Maybe my manager's manager at this point is ready to help me set up a plan so that way we can get this under control. He doesn't want me to leave because he knows the work that I'm producing and he wants to keep me on board. So in this case, I'm feeling supported. I'm a little skeptical because I've seen how the work has been and there hadn't been any changes, but I also know that he cared about me and maybe we could come to an agreement on what needs to happen here. So we set up that opportunity to really level set on what those next steps need to be for me to feel comfortable in that role and to get back on track with being able to take care of myself and still produce healthy work. Outside of working with my management and his management, I also tried to do more things that worked for me. So even though I had very little free time, the free time that I did have, I spent that time with family. They would fly in, they would spend time with me because they understood the amount of stress that I was under. I tried to pick up new hobbies. So I tried painting. Painting actually stressed me out more than what I was before. So I stopped that. Maybe because I did a paint by numbers and I got hard mode and it was just too much. So painting didn't go so well, but I did enjoy puzzles. I grew up doing puzzles, so I started doing like the 1,000 piece puzzles. That helped relax me. Tried to do things like that to really take care of myself. So I'm working on the management plan. I'm working on trying out new hobbies, taking care of myself. And we gave the period maybe a 3-month trial, working with my team to see is there any improvement in my quality at this office? Am I feeling better? So I gave it a 3-month period. Ultimately, at the end of that 3 months, I decided that there didn't really seem to be any changes. It didn't seem as though the plans that we had discussed prior really had any action, mainly because there's work to do. There are people that need to be taken care of. There are things that I have to do in my line of work that sometimes just can't take a back burner. And so I couldn't show up the way that I needed to for them specifically with the workload that was given. So for me, at the end of that 3 months, I realized that this wasn't a great working relationship. I wasn't the individual who wanted to spend all day and night at work. I wasn't the individual who wanted to talk about work from sunup to sundown with my coworkers because we're all together, we're traveling together. I just needed a break from work. I needed to spend time outside of my coworkers because I was in such a bubble at work. It was rare for me to have friends outside of work. It was rare for me to be able to travel home to see my family versus them coming up here. And even when they did come up here, they spent time in my apartment while I was out working. So it was a lot. It was a lot to handle. And after that 3-month trial period, I put in my final 2nd week notice, and that was the end of that. I did not have a job lined up. In that 3-month time period that I was giving a trial run, I was working so much I barely had time to look for jobs. And we already know that looking for a job is a full-time job. But I did try to dabble a bit to see what was out there. Nothing that really stood out to me because, like I said, I'm straight out of college at this point. I'm upwards of 1 year of work experience. So it is difficult for me to find a position that is looking for the skills that I'm starting to grow, but not necessarily at an experienced level. So it was kind of like I was still new, but not enough new roles open, and then I don't have enough experience to get some of those qualified roles at that point. So it was very difficult for me to find something, but I really needed to take care of me. So at this stage, I'm not even thinking about a job, but I know that that's something in the back of my mind. I just know that I am going to finish off my year at my job. I am going to finish my lease on my apartment, and then I am going to move back home. What's crazy in all of this is that I maintained a pretty decent LinkedIn profile, and I had a recruiter reach out to me probably a few days before I left my job, and they reached out with an opportunity that seems pretty good. However, they were looking for 3 years of work experience. I only had the 1, but it seemed like a great opportunity. They wanted to move forward with the interview process. I'm going to go through with it. However, I'm just so burned out and stressed. The last thing I even want to think about is work. So I do understand if you're going through this yourself, it is so difficult to think about work and to think about interviews and to think about possibly even going into another company where it's the same situation. That was my biggest fear. I did not want to go into another situation like that. But I had to continue pushing forward, and I had to make sure that I prepared myself for the future by still moving forward with that interview process. So I went ahead through those series of interviews, and it turned out to be an excellent company. It was an excellent decision for me to onboard with them and to actually get started with them. So I am glad that despite my reservations, I moved forward with that. I did not spend a lot of time on the job hunt since they did reach out to me, but it was just God looking out for me, honestly. He knew how stressed I was and how much I needed to just have an easy route to something. So he took care of me in that regard. And I know not everybody has that. I know the job market is really, really tough. I know that applying for jobs, like I said, is a full-time job. So if just taking all that I know now, if I look back and I really think about it, one, quitting was an absolute must for me. There was no way I was going to be able to go through that without having removed myself from the situation. But I also know that not everyone is fortunate enough to have that opportunity. You need a job. You have responsibilities. You may have kids. You may have a spouse. You may have a large amount of debt that you really need to take care of. So there's just no way that you can step away from your job as easy as I did. So if I'm looking back and I'm trying to figure out how would I manage this a little bit better, one, I would set better boundaries. So this was my first job. I did not have good boundaries. I did not say no. And it's not even a matter of saying, no, I can't do that. I'm too busy. I can't do that. It's just letting your coworkers know what you have capacity to do. So now I'm not burned out, but if someone gives me an assignment and my plate's already full, I'll say, hey, I am not able to work on this for you. I have X, Y, and Z that I'm currently working on. What's the priority on this item? If it's a huge priority, maybe I'll recommend someone who I know has expertise in that, who can assist with that, who may have some capacity to handle that. But it's just about setting boundaries and letting people know this is what I'm working on. I really don't have that capacity. And they are not going to jump down your throat if you don't have that capacity. Just make sure that you're outlining the things that you are working on so that people can see that you are bringing value to the company. You just need extra space to get those things done. And if one of those items that they're bringing to your plate is a higher priority and you can set something aside, that will help you better with your priorities. So just being able to say no and set those boundaries is really, really helpful. And that is something that I did not get until I came to my next job. You also want to make sure that if you are not able to step out of your situation, make sure that you are prioritizing your sleep. You are making that a must. I know it is so easy to work till 11 p.m., 12 a.m., 1 a.m., whatever. But sleep is so important. It's one of those things that is easy to neglect, but it can really have a profound impact on your health. So I would say shut it off. Have a set time in which you need to be in bed every night and adhere to that, because lack of sleep is literally shaving years off of your life, and you do not want that. Prioritize that sleep. In the same token, prioritize what you're eating. Make sure that you are eating. I know it's so difficult to step away and take breaks when you're really in the groove of things, but make sure that you are eating healthy, fulfilling food. So in that case, if you can't step away, which in the case that I couldn't, meal prep on weekends. I'm at a stage now where Saturday nights, I keep Saturday nights free. I don't like to hang out too late on Saturdays because I do have to wake up early for church on Sunday. So Saturday nights are reserved for me meal prepping, making sure that I have dinner for the week, making sure that what I'm eating is nutritious, so that when I wake up in the morning, I can grab my breakfast really quickly. When it's time for lunch, I can grab my meal really quickly. So it's a matter of being able to plan out your food so that way you're taking care of your body. So you want to make sure you're eating nutritious. You want to make sure that you're getting enough sleep. You want to make sure too that you're exercising. Carve out some time to really move your body and get in the groove of just sweating a little bit, making sure that you exert some force so that way you can relieve some of that stress. And even if you can't do all of that, just taking a few minutes to walk each day is golden. Now that I have a dog, I work from home, I make sure that I take multiple breaks throughout the day, 10, 15 minutes, whatever, to just step away and get some fresh air. It is wonderful. Absolutely love that part. Also, just make sure that you prioritize and set expectations. That's the bulk of it. If you are in a situation where you're burning out, prioritize, set those expectations with your team, with yourself. You really have to put yourself first. So here's the deal with burnout. Here's the reality. One, it is extremely tough to overcome. I was at a point where I just had to quit. I couldn't even fix it. I had to leave immediately. But if you are able to manage it, if you're able to put some of these practices in place to prevent it, do that. Even if you don't think that you'll need it, put them in place anyway. I am practicing them right now, and I am not burned out, and it is maybe because of what it is that I'm doing, where I'm taking care of my body. So make sure that you manage yourself, because burnout is no joke. It is extremely difficult to overcome, and it will have you doing some crazy things. The next is like quitting after burnout. It's scary. Okay, even though I had so much going on and I couldn't even focus on what was in front of me, I was scared. I was scared because I didn't have another source of income coming in at the time in which I quit. I was scared because I was moving back home. I felt like a failure. I moved away. I was excited. Everybody had moved me out. And now I'm going back home. I'm feeling like a failure. I don't have my career set. This is not what I expected for myself at all. And on top of that, the career field that I was in, that wasn't what I expected at all. And I was only redirected because of COVID, because that's the time period in which I graduated. So on top of all of this, I am feeling confused. I'm flustered. I have no idea what's going on. And on top of this, I have COVID anyway, so I'm sick. So it was just a very scary time period for me. So if you are feeling fearful, I think that that's normal. It was normal for me. And so that's probably a normal feeling for you too. And just being worried about finances, that's a scary situation to be in. But just know that that is the reality of it, and you are not alone in that fear. Also keep in mind that when it comes to burnout and you're filling out job applications, that is a full-time job. So be patient with yourself. Make sure that you are still taking care of yourself in that process of applying for new jobs. Make sure that you're not being hard on yourself. You are qualified. The job market, I don't know what it is, and it is not a fun place to be. But make sure that you are being patient. You're qualified. You have the skills. You just need to think about what your value is and what those skills are, and be able to market those a little bit better, and be a little bit creative too in the way you approach things. So when I did my interview with this new job, one of the things that I don't think that anyone's ever seen is that once we got to the final round interview, I actually requested another interview. And that wasn't an interview for them to interview me. It was for me to interview them. And I requested that, and they thought that that was the craziest thing. So just find different ways for yourself to help you stand out a little bit. Also, in this time period, if you are thinking about moving on, network. Get your LinkedIn profile presence up. Meet people who could potentially help you with the skill set that you have. And most importantly, take care of yourself. You only have one life. You do not want to lose that by being stressed, being flustered, being overworked, not taking care of yourself. You have a great opportunity here to turn things around. It's just going to take some time, and that is okay. Hope you guys like this video. Like I said, a little bit more personal for me, but I'm glad to share, and I hope that it helps some of you in your own situations. I would love it if you would like, comment, share, subscribe to this video, help boost it out to help more folks. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.